Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the SALCC debate competition. This event forms part of the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council's calendar of activities in observance of Productivity Awareness Week. This year, the week is being observed under the theme Navigating Through Disruption, Resilience, the Engine of Productivity. Before further ado, allow me to briefly introduce myself. My name is Jenik Polius, and I'm a Year 1 Architectural Technology student at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College. I currently serve as St. Lucia's Junior Minister for Tourism, and I am passionate about youth development, creative design, and meaningful public engagement. I am truly honored to be your mistress of ceremony for today's event. At this time, I kindly ask everyone to stand as Milan Philip, a student from the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, leads us in prayer.
Please compose yourself for prayer. Heavenly Father, we thank you for gathering us here today. Bless our debaters with wisdom, respect, and understanding. Help each participant to speak with clarity, fairness, and truth, and guide us to learn from one another. May this event bring knowledge, unity, and growth. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please be seated. Thank you, Milan, for starting us off in such a meaningful way. At this moment, allow me to firstly acknowledge the presence of Honorable Wayne Girard, Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development, and Youth Economy. Mr. Francis Fontenelle, PS in the Department of Finance. Mrs. Sophia Henry, PS, Ministry of Commerce. Ms. Janet Barnard, PS, Department of the Public Services. Mr. Paul Hilaire, PS, Department of Economic Development, and Dr. Cletus Burren, Executive Director, Caribbean Electric Utility Services Corporation, CARELEC. Mrs. Fiona Hinkson, Budget Director. Mr. Marlon Narcis, Director, Public Service, Public Sector Modernization. Mrs. Lisa Flora Montut, Director of the NCPC. Ms. Gemma Lafay, Director, Research and Policy. Mr. Matthew Branford, Accountant General. Ms. Beverly Diodoni, Chief Education Officer. And Ms. Natalie Jolie Farnes, Director, Marketing and Communication, SALCC, and Coordinator for the debating competition. Specially invited guests, Mr. Nicholas Bernard, Chairman of the NCPC and the Board of the NCPC. Board members of the NCPC, Mrs. Sherilyn Monrose Gustav, Project Coordinator, Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, representatives of the Bankers Association, representatives of the Manufacturers Association, representatives of the Chamber of Commerce, members of the Productivity Awareness Week Planning Committee, staff of the NCPC, staff of the CRDTP, staff of our various government departments, debaters, staff and students of SALCC, specially invited secondary school students, the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome. We are truly grateful for your dedication to empowering our young people and for standing in support of this week's initial meaningful activities. I would like to take this opportunity to invite the Director of the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council, Mrs. Lisa Flora Montut, to deliver some welcome remarks.
Good morning, everybody. Please allow me to adopt the protocol already established. Good morning, esteemed judges, participants, staff, and students of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, staff of NCPC, the sponsors, other students, other invited guests, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council, it is both an honor and a privilege to welcome you all to today's debate competition, where we confront a topic that lies at the intersection of geopolitics, economics, and national identity as part of our Productivity Awareness Week 2025, under the theme, Navigating Through Disruption, Resilience, the Engine of Productivity. Our motion today, St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus, is one that invites us to examine not just international relations, but the very path we envision for our island's future and its long-term productivity and competitiveness. We live in a globalized world where power is rarely neutral and influence is rarely accidental. The United States, often seen as a central actor on the global stage, plays a significant role in shaping the economic, diplomatic, and even cultural realities of many small nations, St. Lucia included. But with that influence comes a crucial question. Are our developmental goals best served by leaning into that power, or should we reevaluate our dependencies and diversify our alliances? Today, our debaters will grapple with these complex themes, assessing the benefits and costs of alignment, the historical context of our international partnerships, and what sovereignty and sustainable development truly mean for our small island state in this 21st century. We encourage spirited yet respectful dialogue, evidence-driven arguments, and above all, a willingness to challenge assumptions, even our own. With that, let the debate begin. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fanes. Yeah. Okay, sorry. Hold on. Thank you, Mrs. Flora Montout, for your remarks. And now I will introduce our judges and our moderator. Okay, apologies. At this point, I would like to call on the Director of Marketing and Communications for the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, Mrs. Natalie Jolie Fanis, to deliver some remarks.
Good morning, everyone. I shouldn't adjust the mic, I'm the shortest, right? Please allow me to adopt the protocol already established. It is my pleasure to bring greetings on behalf of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College as we join in the observance of National Productivity Week 2025. This year's theme could not be more relevant. Across the world and here in St. Lucia, we are continually challenged by economic uncertainty, climate change, technological shifts, and global realignments. Yet, it is through these very disruptions that we find opportunities to innovate, adapt, and strengthen our resilience as individuals and as a nation. We at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College are particularly proud to participate in this year's program through the SALCC Debate Society, whose members will examine the moot. St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. This topic is both current and thought-provoking. It asks us to confront the realities of global influence, economic dependence, and national sovereignty, issues that are not just the concern of policymakers, but of every citizen, especially our youth. In an era marked by shifting alliances, trade dependencies, and geopolitical tensions, the question of how small states like St. Lucia navigate global power dynamics is central to our development and productivity. For our students, this debate is more than an academic exercise. It is an invitation to think critically about the world they are inheriting and shaping. It challenges them to understand how international relationships influence our economic prospects, our aspects to technology, our education, and even our cultural identity. Engaging with such issues help nurture a generation that is globally aware, strategically minded, and resilient, qualities that are the true engines of productivity in the 21st century. The college commends the National Productivity Council for creating this platform where young minds can exchange ideas and deepen their understanding of national and global development. We also celebrate our debaters for their courage, intellectual curiosity, and commitment to informed dialogue. In the spirit of our college's namesake, Sir Arthur Lewis, who believed that knowledge and innovation are the foundations of growth, we stand proud to see our students contributing to this important national conversation. Thank you so much for your time here, and we wish all our participants a stimulating and enlightening debate. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, Mrs. Farnes, for those remarks and for your continuous support in our student endeavors. At this moment, it is my pleasure to introduce you to our moderator and esteemed judges. Firstly, our moderator, Jadia Esteva, is a Year 1 student in the CAPE program at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, vying for president-elect of the college's debate society. She has had previous experience as the president of the Public Speaking Club at the Leon Head Secondary School, where she has participated in both national and regional public speaking competitions. I will now introduce our esteemed judges. Dr. Thomas Samuel. Dr. Thomas Samuel is an economist by training and a former senior economist in the Research and Policy Unit of the Ministry of Finance and Economic Affairs. He's a graduate of the University of the West Indies and holds an MSc in International Economics and Finance, which he pursued at the postgraduate level, leading to a PhD with a focus on international trade and development. He's the former director of international trade in the Ministry of Commerce and is currently a trade consultant and advisor attached to that ministry. Dr. Samuel is also a former part-time lecturer with SALCC, UWI, and Monroe College. He's a former member of the Caribbean Public Research Institute based at UWI in Jamaica and a frequent contributor to NCP Week. Among other things, he's currently the head of the technical subcommittee of the task force established by the government of St. Lucia to monitor and evaluate the changing in U.S. trade policies on St. Lucia. Mr. Yashid Charles. Yashid Charles is an active member of the Platinum Artistic Toastmasters Club, where he has developed a strong foundation in persuasive communication, critical thinking, and leadership. He has served in various speaking and mentoring roles, guiding others mastering in the arts of structured arguments and confident delivery. Professionally, Yashid Charles is the webmaster at the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, OECS Commission. He manages the organization's digital platforms and online strategies, integrating creativity and technology to strengthen regional engagement and visibility. He brings to the debate arena a balanced perspective valuing clarity, logic, and impactful presentation. He is deeply passionate about empowering others through communication and innovation. Mr. Kimbert Evans. Mr. Kimbert Evans is an economist at the Department of Finance, Government of St. Lucia. In his current capacity, He is responsible for fiscal policy analysis and research, providing insights in support evidence-based decision-making and informing the country of its economic development agenda. Over the years, he has also worked extensively on issues related to public debt management, the real sector, and macroeconomic policy formation. He's a proud alumnus of the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College and the University of the West Indies, where he was actively involved in debates. Those experiences not only strengthened his analytical and communication skills, but also deepened his appreciation for reasoned arguments and intellectual discourse. At this time, I now turn the proceedings over to our moderator, who will guide us through today's debate. Please welcome Ms. Jadia Esteva.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much, Ms. Polius, our Junior Minister of Tourism, for that introduction. I hope you all take note of that. Janik is our Junior Minister of Tourism this year. That's very impressive. I would like to say good morning to all of you present here with us and those of you who are looking online, and to please allow me to adopt the protocol already established. It is an honor to be the moderator of our first debate for the academic school year, which goes for the moot, St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. Now, I would like to establish the procedure for today's debate. The leader of the proposition shall make his or her case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The leader of the opposition shall then make his or her case for a maximum of 10 minutes. The second speaker of the proposition shall make his or her case for a maximum of 7 minutes, and the second speaker of the opposition shall make his or her case for a maximum of 7 minutes. The leader of the opposition shall have a maximum of 5 minutes for rebuttal, and then the leader of the proposition shall also have 5 minutes for his or her rebuttal. At the end of each speaker's allotted time, the speaker will have 20 seconds to vacate the lectern. The timekeeper shall give a warning signal 1 minute before the expiration of the speaker's allotted time, and again at the end of the allotted time. Following the rebuttals, the adjudicators will be escorted to a secure venue for their deliberations. Before the start of the deliberations, the auditor will collect the score sheets on which the scores achieved by each team will be recorded by the 3 judges. The auditor will then compute the final scores, determine the winning team, and turn over the results to the special adjudicator. The moderator may lead an open discussion while the adjudicators are deliberating for 10 to 15 minutes. This discussion must be about the moot point and must not be a discussion of the debaters. So please, when you are asking your questions or proposing your questions to the debaters, refrain from critiquing the way that they present their points. Let's leave that up to the judges. Upon the return of the officials to the debate venue, the chief judge will give a brief constructive critique of the debaters' performance, after which the results will be revealed. Let us not forget to encourage the debaters after they have delivered their speeches, and also please refrain from persistent movement or fidgeting while they are at the podium. We do not want to have any unnecessary distractions while they give their points. With that being said, now we begin with the leader of the proposition, Ms. Phoebe Popo, but before she comes on, let me read the moots to you one more time. St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. Ladies and gentlemen, Ms. Phoebe Popo.
Good day, distinguished judges, moderator, my fellow opposition, students, and those viewing online. Our position is simple and pragmatic. Given the geopolitical and economic realities, the United States' hegemonic role makes close ties not only useful, but central to St. Lucia's long-term development, and therefore, maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. Permit me to dissect the moot. Long-term development means sustainable progress in our economy, education, healthcare, infrastructure, and national security. Growth that secures a better life for a better future. U.S. hegemonic power speaks to the United States' dominant military, economic, and cultural influence that allows it to shape global systems and decisions. Primary focus refers to the central priority of St. Lucia's international relations and development strategy. I will affirm the moot with 2 points, then I will hand it over to my seconder, who will continue to highlight the benefits of maintaining the current relationship. Point 1, inevitability of interdependence and U.S. dominance, where I will speak on the geographic and economic reality, financial and trade fusion, and transport infrastructure links. In point 2, I'll explain the concrete benefits of maintaining current relationships with the U.S. by speaking on security and economic stability. Firstly, geography builds dependence. According to Flight Connection, St. Lucia lies within the Atlantic air and sea corridors that link directly to the U.S. Our small island is about 1,500 miles away from Miami, with direct airline flights taking about 4 hours. Because of this proximity, U.S. tourists account for over half of our arrivals, 54% in August 2024. This means our tourism, one of our biggest foreign exchange earners, is literally riding on the U.S. connection. Any disruption in U.S. air access or demand immediately impacts tourism, revenue, and jobs. Moreover, foreign direct investment, FDI, happens when individuals or companies from one country, in this case the U.S., invest and own assets or businesses in another country, St. Lucia. The very Airbnb and tourism villas that sustain St. Lucia's northern economy are built and funded by U.S. citizens. That's foreign direct investment in action. The World Bank notes that FDI contributes over 10% of our gross domestic product, GDP, and the U.S. leads that flow. So when an American builds an Airbnb in Rodney Bay or a restaurant in Grosley, they are not just tourists. They are a part of our economy. Our long-term development is already interwoven with U.S. enterprises. Building on this support, ordinary St. Lucians have also turned U.S. opportunities into local stability, contributing to the economy through remittances. These funds strengthen households, they support small businesses, and provide a steady flow of foreign exchange, further reinforcing the very foundations of our long-term development. Remittances are not just pocket change, they are the quiet backbone of our foreign stability. In a report from World Bank, the Caribbean received over $156 billion US dollars in 2023. These linkages bind us economically and socially to the U.S. in ways that can't easily be severed. Now, the opposition may claim that such dependence weakens our sovereignty, but the truth is remittances are not government-controlled funds. They are people-to-people investments. That is not dependency. That is strategic interconnection. Moderator, allow me to speak on trade links and foreign aid. St. Lucia depends heavily on U.S. trade inputs. In 2020, trade economy reported nearly 39% of all our imports came from the U.S. That is over $211 million US dollars in goods flowing in. USTradeNumber.com further emphasized that St. Lucia's economy is deeply connected to the United States. By mid-2025, total trade with the U.S. reached over $670 million US dollars. Our economy relies on strong U.S. supply chains to import essential goods, fuel, construction materials, and food, while exporting services and niche products to U.S. channels. To suggest this partnership should not be our primary focus ignores reality. These connections are what allows our economy to function and to grow. The United States also provides targeted development assistance in economic reliance, infrastructure, and disaster recovery. While not enormous, this aid acts as catalytic capital. It helps attract larger public and private investments and allows smaller but essential projects to move forward. In other words, the U.S. support doesn't just add resources, it multiplies opportunities, strengthening St. Lucia's ability to grow substantially. U.S. trade numbers outlines that trade between U.S. and St. Lucia surged in early 2025. U.S. imports from us are growing 19% year to year. That signals rising demand and integration. Weakening that link means losing opportunities, not just trade numbers. The stability, legal clarity, and market access that accompanies a strong U.S. relationship also. Over-reliance on trade with the U.S. makes us vulnerable to the external shocks like U.S. policy changes, tariffs, and recessions. We should reduce trade dependence, is what the opposition may try to counter my points with. But to this, moderator, I say, playing it safe by walking away from our biggest market isn't protection. It's self-inflicted harm. Let's revisit our mood, shall we? Maintaining ties with the U.S. should be our primary focus, not our only focus. In assessing St. Lucia's long-term development, we cannot ignore the pivotal role of transportation and infrastructure linking us to the United States. In 2024, more than half of our international visitors came directly from the U.S., showing how much our tourism depends on these connections, St. Lucia government. Tourism Analytics states that airline capacity from the U.S. has been steadily increasing to meet demand, and approximately 10,000 more airline seats from U.S. driven by major carriers like American Airlines and Delta. Similarly, insights from Report Linker says our ports handle tens of thousands of containers annually, demonstrating that shipping and trade flows are significant to the economy. And to those who may argue that interdependence weakens us, I say the opposite. The U.S. connection is not a leash, it is a link. No other partner offers accessibility, stability, investment that sustains our tourism, trade, and transport. To cut that tie would not be independence, it would be economic amputation. Beyond trade and infrastructure, the United States plays a crucial role in ensuring St. Lucia's safety and resilience. Our security partnerships show why these connections also keep St. Lucia stable. Additionally, Congress.gov through U.S. Southern Command indicates that we benefit from coordinated maritime security, protecting our waters and resources from illegal activities like unregulated fishing, bolster maritime domain awareness, and strengthening regional cooperation in the Caribbean. U.S. Embassy Barbados 2024 indicates when hurricanes or floods strike, the U.S. provides immediate humanitarian aid, technical support, and relief coordination, allowing us to rebuild and quickly minimize on our economic losses. Furthermore, the Lesser Antilles Medical Assistant Team Lamont a U.S. Southern initiative has been instrumental in providing medical care and humanitarian assistance to St. Lucia. In 2025, Lamont conducted joint medical readiness exercises, delivering essential services and strengthening our infrastructure. Esteemed judges, our partnership with the United States, it's not just beneficial, it's indispensable. It strengthens our security and stability, preparing us for future challenges. Cutting that tie is not independence, it is vulnerability. Geopolitics teaches us that influence is power, and power ensures survival. St. Lucia cannot afford to drift. Our very future depends on maintaining strong ties with the US for these reasons. For these reasons, we firmly affirm the moot. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Popo. All right, I'm sorry guys, I don't have glasses, but. So her time was 10 minutes and 11 seconds. So while we give the judges some time to do their grading, let me just inform you of what the criteria is. So they are being graded on soundness of points, clear thesis, definition of motion, accuracy of points, strength of arguments, relevance of points, evidence-based response, and citation of credible sources, and this goes for 35 marks. Now, I'm not a professional, but from what I can decipher here is that the judges don't have a very easy job. So while we are applauding the debaters, let's also save some applause for the judges as well. And another criteria that they are being judged on is logical development also, which is one of my favorite parts of debating. But let me see, judges, are we ready or should I continue reading? Okay, so logical development, brief outline of key points in introduction, well organized for maximum effect, clear explanation of each point, strong conclusion based on overall argument. This goes for 20 marks. And then there is audibility and clarity. So this is appropriate projection of voice, effective tone modulation, clear and accurate enunciation. So how are they speaking? How are they presenting? Are they monotonous? How are they coming in? How are they speaking at the podium? How are they bringing their points forward towards you? And this is for 15 marks. All right. By the way, I hope what Ms. Popo had to say didn't go through one ear and come out the other, because that was very insightful, if I should say so myself. We ready? Okay, so now I would like to welcome the leader of the opposition, Mr. Ethan Glasgow. But before he goes on, I was told that the leaders have 10 minutes to speak and they will be informed when they have 5 minutes left, as well as when they have 1 minute left. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Ethan Glasgow.
He raises. Esteemed judges, moderators, members of the proposition, my colleague, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I stand here firmly to oppose the moot. St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. This motion is deceptive, dangerously short-sighted, and promises national ruin if ever adopted. To dismantle this flawed assumption, we start by defining key terms. Hegemony is, quote, a situation in which one country or group has more power, control, or influence than others, as defined by Collins Dictionary. According to Law Insider, primary focus is, quote, an activity or objective within the sector upon which an organization or body concentrates its efforts. According to Cambridge Dictionary, development is, quote, the process through which someone or something grows, changes, and becomes more advanced. By assuming that St. Lucia's long-term development is best linked to hegemonic power of the US, the moot theorizes a dependent and subservient relationship founded on subordination instead of empowerment. That is not development. It is modern colonialism with a clean name. Instead, St. Lucia must seek solid, long-term development in forging diversified, sustainable partnerships with many regions and continents, particularly in close relationship with CARICOM. Our development must be grounded on independence, vigor, and cooperation, not on the shifting fancies of some foreign power. This is not merely an economic issue. It is a matter of sovereignty and dignity. The late Prime Minister of Barbados, Sir Errol Barrow, set the Caribbean standard when he told the United Nations in 1967, "We'll be friends of all, satellites of none." This is the principle which must guide St. Lucia's stance in the modern world. My colleague and I will uphold our rejection under 3 thematic headings. 1, how hegemonic power undermines national interests. 2, how the current institutional order imperils long-term development. And 3, the imperative for anticipatory diversification and accommodation. I will address the first 2 points. My colleague Lee Kwan will address the third. Starting off with 1, how US hegemonic power undermines national interests. The United States has a clear and well-documented track record of promoting self-interest at the expense of weaker states. Its interventionist, sanctioning, and foreign aid policies aim for dominance, not for even fostering growth. For over 60 years, the United States has had sanctions on Cuba simply for the reason that Cuba wanted to control its own resources. The same phenomenon occurs in Venezuela, where sanctions undermine social progress, and in Guyana, which was sanctioned in the 1960s for wanting independent policies. Haiti offers perhaps the most sobering example. The United States maintained slavery for 6 decades after Haiti gained independence in 1806, and later enforced economic controls that ensured Haitian poverty would persist for decades and centuries. It is even revealed by WikiLeaks that American corporations actively lobbied to keep Haiti's minimum wage at $3 a day. That is not a partnership. It is domination. My worthy rivals will certainly bring US aid as evidence of friendship, but this sort of help comes with strings attached. Official development aid often insists on the employment of American contractors for goods, and it ensures that much of the money finds its ways into the donor country's coffers rather than the recipient nation's economy. The Telegraph in September 2012 exposed the same, as administrative costs swallowed enormous amounts of the aid destined for recipient countries. Outside of hard economics is soft power. Political analyst Joseph Nye refers to this as, quote, the ability to co-opt rather than coerce. Through culture, media, and consumer behavior, the US directs our tastes and our wallets surreptitiously. American fast foods occupy our streets. Their profit leaves St. Lucia every day. This is economic dependency disguised as cultural convenience. Laws like the Leahy Law even forbid aid unless small nations are to US-established standards, rendering sovereignty a performance benchmarked elsewhere. Now, number 2, how the current system threatens long-term development. St. Lucia's economic exposure is compounded by the dominance of United States-controlled financial networks. The Washington or New York-crafted global standards of banking compliance regimes and associated bank linkages dominate. These regimes threaten core St. Lucian industries, such as the international financial services and the citizenship by investment program. By focusing our attention primarily on the United States, we lose command of how to respond to international crises. For example, during the United States-China trade war, St. Lucian importers and consumers suffered shortages and higher prices due to disruption of supply chains. Our over-reliance on US-based importers left us, St. Lucia, collateral damage in a fight between international superpowers. Historically, so-called strategic alignment with the US has constituted an illusion and not a reality. Under whatever banner, the war on terror, human rights in China, democracy in Venezuela, the goal has always remained to attempt to build up American influence. Simultaneously, internal issues in the US like racial discrimination, political polarization, and democratic regression within the US itself are conveniently ignored. Conversely, CARICOM presents a realistic model of coming together to advance in a common way. The CARICOM Strategic Plan of 2022 to 2030 presents a vision of an integrated, inclusive, and resilient Caribbean community, a Caribbean that acts as one competitive entity in the global economy. The strategy is founded upon self-reliance and cooperation rather than reliance on one single hegemon. Regional initiative has already shown to prove that the Caribbean can thrive on its own terms. The RIGHT project, funded by the European Union, strengthens OECS institutions and refines governance among member states. The OECS Blue Economy strategy puts us back in the position, not of small island developing states, but of large ocean states with the potential to tap into our vast ocean resources for sustainable development. These are actual forward-looking policies. They demonstrate that our growth doesn't have to be based on US hegemony. Instead, we can build prosperity on regional integration, equitable global partnerships, and self-determination. To sum up, what we are calling for is simple but potent: diversification of interests, partnerships, and opportunities. The global order is no longer unipolar. The emerging powers in Africa, Asia, and Latin America provide new channels of trade, investment, and cultural interactions. St. Lucia, as a small country, quite frankly, can't put its eggs in one hegemonic basket. Madam Moderator, in the belief of Caribbean pride and self-determination, I urge you all to reject this moot. The long-term development of St. Lucia is not and cannot be equated with US hegemonic influence. Our destiny is in regional unity, sustainable independence, and pluralism in the world. Let us remain, as Errol Barrow so correctly described it, friends of all, satellites of none. I thank you.
All right, 9:20 seconds. All right, so Mr. Glasgow delivered his speech in 9 minutes and 28 seconds. Before I continue, let me just ask you, please forgive my bad manners. I started off this debate without introducing you formally to your debaters. So the proposition, which is in red, we have the leader, Miss Phoebe Popo. She's a second-year CAPE student. The seconder, Mr. Jaden Leo, a final-year student pursuing an associate degree in chemistry. Isn't that interesting? Round of applause for them. And for the opposition, Mr. Ethan Glasgow, our leader, a second-year CAPE student as well, and the seconder, Mr. Lequan Lewis, a second-year student in the engineering department. Right. With that being said, I do not want to continue without acknowledging the head coach who helped the students prepare their speeches today, Mr. Tafawa Williams. I'm not sure how much exposure everyone in the audience or at home has to debating, but we all should know that it is not an easy thing to do. Preparing the speeches, doing the research, it takes a lot of time from my experience personally, and not everything online can be trusted. So you have to make sure that you double and triple check before you come and present your points today, which is why I commend the debaters and their head coach, and also, again, the judges. This is not an easy job, people. So, like I said, just to remind you, the leaders had 10 minutes to present, and the seconders now have 7 minutes, which they will be informed at the 3-minute mark that they have 3 minutes left, then again at 1 minute. I hope this has been very entertaining for you all so far, especially the secondary school students present. I see a lot of blue and white. But I cannot ignore my alma mater. I also see a lot of green and white as well. I think we should clap for all the secondary school students here. All right, so before the judges give me their cue, the students are also being graded on posture and personality, confidence, effective use of gestures, eye contact with the audience, which they are given 15 marks. So how do they compose themselves at the lectern? How do they use their body language to bring forth their points and to dramatize what they are trying to say to you? The last criteria is command of material, effective articulation of points, smooth flow with minimal use of notes, comfortable speaking pace, which they are graded 15 points. So in all, the students are graded out of 100 points for section 1. The second section is the rebuttal. I won't give you too much details now. I'll let you know after the seconders have spoken. All right, the judges are ready. Now let us welcome the seconder of the proposition, Mr. Jaden Leo.
Esteemed moderator, distinguished guests, fellow debaters, worthy opponents, and ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Pondering this mood, I recalled a famous quote from renowned U.S. gospel singer Mahalia Jackson. It is easy to be independent when you've got money, but to be independent when you haven't gotten a thing, that's the Lord's test. Let it be understood that I support that St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. Expanding on what my colleague spoke about, I will speak on risk mitigation and how in practical significant diversification is. Abandoning our relations with the U.S. would risk the support we already benefit from. Referring to the Leahy Law and the restrictions it imposes on our Coast Guard and other security forces, it became apparent how significant U.S. contributions were. Consequently, without the support, we are currently struggling. Moderator,
This unfortunate situation is merely one example of how important US support is to even our essential services. This struggle appears what the opposition advocates for. Moderator, our elders have a colorful saying that describes illogical conduct. Penny wise, pound foolish, and the bird in hand is more powerful is more valuable, I apologize, than the bird in the bush. Moderator, in my humble opinion, the advocacy of the opposition appears quite illogical. The US is by far our largest trading partner with more than 40% of our imports versus merely 8.1% of our largest importer country, China. Let's examine how intertwined our economy is with the US. Our relationship with the US includes ODA and FDI. The vast majority of arrivals from our cruise ships industry is US dominated, while most of our hotels are in fact US funded. The vast majority of our airlift is US owned and based. I would now like to address the impracticality of major diversification. Moderator, our argument is that we keep focus on the US regardless of the need to diversify. We are not against the idea of diversifying. However, we are opposed to it if it is misinterpreted to mean the shift of primary focus to another country, neglecting our current relationship with the US. Size matters, moderator. The negotiations of the Generalized Agreement of Trade and Tariff, GATT, predecessor of the World Trade Organization, went ahead and neither St. Lucia nor CARICOM altogether met the requirement of 1% of global trade. These are the realities of how small we are. Regarding business and economic matters, we do not statistically register as significant. Moderator, our reality cannot be redefined by fanciful notions enveloped in emotive words to translate marginalization into independence. We have to face the fact that we are small. The OECS is small. CARICOM is small on a world stage. Resentfully true, but nonetheless factual. Moderator, China, the world's manufacturing hub, has no direct trading routes with St. Lucia. Hence, diversifying from US trade route poses challenges in the supply chain. But what about our air routes for tourist arrivals? Jamaica has collapsed. Liat has collapsed. Leaving the only alternative of Liat 2020, which is an expensive alternative. In many cases, flights to the US are more cost-effective than flights to Jamaica or St. Kitts and Nevis. You will forgive me if I do not comment on the regularity of Liat 2020 or leaving island anytime, if at all. Shipping routes remain unchanged and are dominated by US shipping. The US shipping line, Tropical Shipping. We are inextricably linked to the US. Moderator, the Windward Island Banana Development and Exporting Company, WIPDECO, purchased UK's Geese line in 1996. For those who may not know, Geese transported bananas from the region to the UK, like Jamaica and Liat. This venture also came to an unceremonious end. It was only 2021 that the Geese line was revitalized by a joint venture between the Dutch shipping company, Seatrade, and the Jamaican Producers Group. This serves as evidence that the new ideas the opposition are proposing has only succeeded in failing. The past ought to be a guide to avoid future mistakes. Moderator, the opposition suggests that we welcome Puff the Magic Dragon for tea under a rainbow and allow the leprechaun to gift us his pot of gold. This is not developmental strategy. This is a nursery rhyme in poor taste. Moderator, I invite you to snap your fingers and wake up the opposition. Daydreaming while comforting is only pleasing with your eyes closed. I urge my worthy opponents to accept the reality and the historical antecedents which support the moot that St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power, and maintaining those ties should be our primary focus. I thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Leo. He spoke at a time of 7 minutes and 22 seconds. So with that being said, let me just inform you briefly about the rebuttals. So a rebuttal is an act of refuting by offering a contrary contention or argument. So essentially the speech act of answering an attack on your assertions. So each side, the opposition and proposition, will be given 5 minutes to prepare for their rebuttals, and then the leaders will present for 3 minutes to contradict the arguments of their counterparts. So that being said, let me just give you some small details about the criteria. For the rebuttals, which is section 2 of the debate, they are being graded out of 60. The first criteria, team coordination, clear presentation of different points, as well as demonstration of original use of duplicated points. So basically, are they saying things that they said in both of their presentations? Were they listening to each other's presentations? Were they working together? This is out of 10 marks. The general analysis of debates illustrate both breadth and depth of knowledge, clear explanation of how opponents' points are inaccurate, inconsistent, exaggerated, and or irrelevant. This is out of 15 marks. So making sure that you were actually researching this topic in depth, not just on Google and looking for points that you wanted to make or wanted to bring to the attention of the audience, and demonstrating that you actually understand the topic, not just from the side that you are representing, but from both sides. Because in order to debate properly, you have to be knowledgeable on both sides, opposing and proposing. Next, we have recall of points. They are graded out of 10. Accurately recall other teams' points, no misinterpretation, strong appeal to reject the argument or accept the counter argument. So they are being judged on spontaneity. So once again, this is not mesmerized, but this is on the spot. This is on the spot. So like I said, they have 5 minutes to prepare, and then they have to present for 3 minutes. So this is why you have to be knowledgeable on both perspectives, so that you can come and make your point known and make your stance known as well. Judges, we ready? Also, after the prepared presentations are over, we will have, this is after the rebuttals, are over. There will be an open discussion where you will be able to come and ask your questions or bring your points forward. Let me remind you, critiquing of the debaters is strictly left to the head judge, Dr. Thomas Samuel. So please, all the mini judges in the crowd, don't come and comment on the people's delivery. That is not your cup of tea. events. Okay, let me just mention quickly, NCPC has a full calendar of events planned this week. I won't give you too much detail, but let me just let you know, aside from the debate today, there is also a panel discussion happening at 2 p.m. The topic is redefining St. Lucia's foreign policy, pursuing greater South-South cooperation. So this is happening here at the Finance Administrative Building in Point Seraphine. Also, tomorrow on the 9th of October, there is a research symposium. 3 research papers will be discussed at 9 a.m. Foundations of Growth, exploring the roles of finance, infrastructure, and trade. This is also happening here. So I encourage not only, I'm not sure if anyone is invited to join, but I encourage you, if that is the case, I encourage you all to come and give your support to NCPC. All right, the judges are ready. So now I will welcome the seconder of the opposition, Mr. Liquan Lewis.
Madam Moderator, esteemed judges, worthy opponents of the proposition, audience members, and my teammates. Good morning. I rise here today in support of our emphatic rejection of this moot, as outlined by my colleague. He discussed the first 2 themes that underpin our thesis, and I will discuss the third, the necessity of proactive adaptation and diversification. Of pivotal importance in this debate is the acceptance of the reality of a multipolar international relations landscape. It is strange that the proposition appears to accept this fact, but curiously speak about future development whilst advocating an antiquated colonial development strategy. That is like trying to Bluetooth stream music from an audio cassette. That's not going to work. The global landscape is a multipolar reality that necessitates fundamental adaptations for success. Despite not having diplomatic ties with the People's Republic of China, it is still St. Lucia's second largest trading partner, according to the Observatory of Economic Complexities 2023 data published in September of 2025. St. Lucia's largest export country is not even the United States, it's actually Guyana. St. Lucia cannot ignore or forego the practical importance of South-to-South cooperation and the magnitude of BRICS and the multipolar reality it is the embodiment of. No matter how confused we become, that we express passionate preferences on who is elected to office in the US, eat their food, etc., we are not US citizens, and they do not define their policies with us in mind. The policy is America first. Moderator, the proposition is arguing that St. Lucia's policy should also become America first. Our reality is peculiar to the region and St. Lucia, and our developmental drive requires solutions that must be reflective of native considerations and aim to secure a more independent policy and future. This requires proactive engagement and, firstly, regional partners, then our South-to-South brothers and sisters. US hegemony is being circumvented and undermined by their own short-sighted policies. Canada has led the way in finding means to merely avoid the US by seeking alternative trading relationships. They have signed deals with China, the EU, and many other countries, rather than relying upon traditional trading ties with the US. Many OPEC countries have also indicated that they would no longer be trading in the US dollar. The ECCB is urging us to trade in our own currency rather than the US dollar. Madam Moderator, our foreign policy is supposed to prioritize St. Lucia's interests first and foremost, not fitting into the US plan for their own advancement where they are not even our largest export partner. The solution going forward must include solutions for independence with regional coalescence that emphasizes that we are better together. As such, the primary focus should shift to implementing solutions as follows. 1, diversifying trading partners and cutting out the middleman. For example, Amazon is setting up a fulfillment center in Santo Domingo to negate US policy volatility. 2, developing CARICOM-owned air and sea transport to service the region. 3, managing the risk of EC dollar peg to reflect the need for diversified trading relationships and the de-dollarization trend, US having possibly a managed basket of currencies rather than the US dollar peg, since we trade with more countries than just the US. This would minimize the fluctuations in pricing when trading with states and other states than the US. Number 4, coordination of foreign policy with CARICOM. A united front is always better than a divided group. And number 5, investing into renewable technology to enhance energy independence. Energy consumption continues to grow, but the US has rolled back their green revolution, advocating for coal. Using green energy will minimize the impact of hydrocarbon price volatility, making our products more price stable. This also applies to our tourism product and the value US tourists who are very price sensitive and energy intensive. Madam Moderator, the proposition's arguments are without merit, antiquated and incompatible with reality. We have demonstrated how the US has historically stymied our neighbors' development for their gain. We have also shown how the US benevolent aid is far from such, and is quite frankly no more without with the shutting down of US aid. Most importantly, a clear roadmap to achieve a diversified foreign policy focus was given. What the US has currently offers us, the region, is the violation of our status as a nuclear-free zone and the threat of military conflict that promises instability in all sectors. Moderator, the need to reject the proposition's argument is now, as there is no exaggeration that it appears an existential event if we do not act to be the friend of all, satellites of none. I thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. 6, 7. Oh. All right, so he presented for 6 minutes and 11 seconds. Before I continue, let me just quickly acknowledge, I missed the heaviest criteria of the rebuttal, but let me just quickly acknowledge the secondary schools that we have present today. So we have St. Joseph's Convent, Coram Secondary School, Viewford Comprehensive Secondary School, and Leon Hess Comprehensive Secondary School, as well as some of our own students from Sir Arthur Lewis. I'm so sorry, I forgot the infamous Grey and Blue Entripo Secondary School. All right, so let me just read the last criteria to you. For the rebuttals, the students are being graded on ability to refute the points, which is 20 marks. So effectively counter-argue each of opponent's points, use of credible examples, level of persuasiveness, and clarity and organization of arguments. So yes, this is sports, this is prepared on the spot, but they have to have some level of organization and structure to their rebuttals. So that being said, also I made a very big mistake. They have 5 minutes to present their rebuttals. I'm sorry about that. I hope I didn't scare you too much. That's like when I had a teacher at school, she would tell us 5 minutes left, and then 2 minutes later she would say, okay, time up. So, I hope I didn't cause too much trouble for our debaters. Okay, so I would like to ask you in the audience for 5 minutes of absolute silence so the debaters can prepare their rebuttals. So please, minimum fidgeting, no whispering, no noise. Try your best to give them this time. Okay, so the time for them to prepare for their rebuttals is up. But before I continue, okay, people, let me apologize for my ignorance, I should say, because I'm always mixing up this word with something positive. Infamous is not a positive word, by the way. I would just like to say that Entrepot is not infamous for any bad behavior, but it's a very reputable school. So I would like to say I'm so sorry for that. And let's just give them a round of applause because that was bad on my part. With that being said, I hope you'll accept my humble apologies. With that being said, we will begin the rebuttals. We always start with the opposition, so I invite the leader of the opposition, Mr. Ethan Glasgow, to give his remarks.
With the protocol already been established, I would like to comment on the remarks of the proposition. And one theme I kept on seeing coming up with the opposition's remarks is St. Lucia being, the US being its main partner, being a main exporting partner. And I'd just like to say that with that policy of St. Lucia being an import partner from the United States, it's important to remember that the US's policy is not the world first, or let's keep the world safe. The president's literal campaign slogan is America first. That was his campaign slogan. That's what he always says. So all these donations, all these gifts, all this aid that the US gives us is just for dependence. And it's just there to make sure that St. Lucia becomes a consumer. Remember, we're importing American goods. We're not exporting to them. Our main exporting partner, as my colleague so rightfully mentioned, is Guyana. So in that note, we should be trying to expand trade with Guyana and the rest of the region because they buy our products. We just buy. We buy KFC. We buy these American fast food companies instead of enforcing our own development. Nothing against any kind of fast food chain. I'm just saying that it's important for when they talk about trade links. I remember the leader saying directly, quote, "It is not a leash, it is a link." No, it's colonialism because they aren't buying from us, we're buying from them. So it is quite like a leash. It is colonialism. That is what we're talking about. And another point that they brought up was about U.S. development projects and job creation. And I'd just like to say, like before, this is an influence strategy, right? This is, we have to bring American workers in, we have to do this and that, we use American equipment, we buy American equipment. So again, the US isn't in for doing infrastructure here for our benefit. The campaign slogan, America first. It's America first. So anything that America does here is to benefit them back home, to give themselves more jobs. And I remember the seconder for the opposition talking about leprechauns and Puff the Magic Dragon and all this stuff. Let me make something crystal clear. We are not proposing that one day we'll snap our fingers and then the US will no longer be a trading partner. We're not saying that. We're saying that the US's instability and insecurity means that we have to start looking elsewhere because the US has shown and proven to not be a reliable trading partner. CARICOM, St. Lucia, all the countries in CARICOM and Latin America in CARILEC signed an agreement and said that this is a war-free zone. And then you have the US blowing up ships there. That means they don't respect our interests. If they really cared about St. Lucian interests, they wouldn't violate a diplomatic treaty we signed without discussing with us first. So, another important point that they mentioned before I wrap up is size. They mentioned size. They like to say that CARICOM is small, St. Lucia is small, we're all small. Look, we are small, okay? I'm not going to deny that fact. But we don't continue to stay small and keep on getting American goods, right? We have to align strategically with Latin America, Asia, Africa, BRICS, all these countries to make sure that our impact is more profound. And we get from that less to 1% to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5%. That is the goal with reacting in a multipolar world with multipolar diplomatic arrangements. I thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ethan. What was his time? Okay, he presented in 4 minutes and 40 seconds. So, give the judges some time to assess them. Okay. Okay, just to remind you also, after the rebuttals, the judges will be escorted to a private room where they will decide who was the winning team of today's debate. So I'm hoping that all of us are excited, anticipating the results. Okay, now we welcome the leader of the proposition to give her rebuttal, Ms. Phoebe Popo.
Judges and students, while the opposition waves their hands and raises their voices, we must remember volume does not equal validity. Hand gestures do not replace hard evidence. What matters here is substance. The opposition highlights hegemons as undermining interests of countries like St. Lucia. But partnering with a hegemon induces success, not only for the US, but for St. Lucia. When you speak of needing or wanting total control and you're partnering with someone, they also receive that. St. Lucia is not entering blindly into an agreement with the US fooling St. Lucia into believing, you come, take, I take all, you go, have nothing. That's Mojo Jojo. We're not Mojo Jojo. Furthermore, the opposition spoke on They spoke on control over Cuba and Venezuela, the sanctioning and slavery of Haiti and Haitian poverty. Let us speak of relevant, recent points when we come to the podium, please. Let us continue to include things that are relevant in today's world, things that actually contribute to the primary focus of being with the US. My opposition says about hegemons they're not true. Haiti has been in war several years, and the U.S. had no impact until latter stages. Haitian Revolution was a historic event in the Caribbean, and the commander, Toussaint Louverture, still required assistance from the U.S. Furthermore, the opposition spoke about partnering with China, which they stated we had no ties with. They spoke about partnering with Africa, Canada, and so many other so-called hegemons. But I say to that, how can we partner with persons we have no ties with? We partner with them under what conditions? How long should we stay in the dark about our partnership with China, with Africa, with Morocco, with all these other countries? They speak about cutting out the middleman, but when we do that, what stance does Lucia have to stand up against the US, to stand with China, who has not officially contributed to the ties we have with them? The ties we don't have with them. They continue to say that aid to secure independence, but with regional partners, we have none. They spoke about Guyana being our primary source, our main trade contributor. Still, I heard no statistics, no facts to back up this claim. If we are to be relevant and have sense when we speak, it is vital to include statistics, to include citations, so our argument could be relevant. They also spoke about how our supply chain is disrupted. To that I say, apologies. They spoke about CARICOM and advancements and a vision in 2030. But to that I say, we are looking at the US and its current government. We do not know in 2030 what will happen with the new government if they come in. We have to look at things that happen relevantly. We have to look at things that can actually happen, not just speaking things into existence. We're not manifesting here. This is facts and statistics. This is what we are going off of. They also spoke about US food and economic dependency, soft power, and partnership like US aid, which is not viable. To that, I say we must focus on the moot and the definitions. Primary focus refers to the central priority of St. Lucia's international relations and development strategy. Long-term development means substantial progress in our economy, and having the US as our primary focus will bind us with them. I thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Popo, for your rebuttal. So the judges will assess her points, and let me just invite our dearest MC to come and give you some remarks before the judges go to their secret room. Oh, also her time. She had a time of 4 minutes and 57 seconds.
Assistance, please. Okay. Technical difficulties for vertically challenged people. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, I believe I speak for all of us when I say that was a beautiful debate. Our talented debaters have given us an outstanding presentation and, dare I say, performance. Can we commend them, please? Just to piggyback off what our wonderful moderator has been saying, I feel really bad for the judges. They have a very difficult job. Okay, gentle reminder, in addition to the panel discussion that's being held later today at 2 in this same room, There will also be another panel discussion on customer service Friday, October 10th, 2025. The topic will be Raising the Bar, Reimagining Customer Service for a More Productive Public Sector. It's being held in the same building, the Finance Administrative Building, Point Seraphine. So, what we've all been waiting for, we now open the floor for discussion. Questions, queries, comments, feel free to raise your hand. For the secondary students especially, I hope this was a learning experience, not only for the debating experience, but learning about economic situations, what's been relevant in our time. Don't forget to kindly introduce yourself before you speak. Don't be shy, and please, 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 keep your contributions concise and relevant to the debates. Let's begin.
So there is a mic in the middle of the floor, right there at your disposal. So whoever is brave enough and ready to go first, I'm sure the debaters are anticipating your comments and questions. And the MC and myself too are also anticipating. So let's have some contributions and entertain a lively discussion, yeah?
Don't be shy, everybody. This was a very interesting topic, I'd say so myself. The blue and white, I see some discussion going on. I think the discussion should be at the mic.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. My question is directed toward the proposition in the red. So I noticed during your points you mainly spoke about tourism, but I wanted to know what other evidence you have that supports that the St. Lucia's long-term development is tied to U.S. hegemonic power.
Okay, good afternoon. In addition to tourism, like we've been speaking constantly about, as you know, tourism is St. Lucia's highest earning sector, but the ties we have with the US, it allowed us, during the COVID-19 season, you know, it began in, I would say, 2020, am I correct? 2019, 2020, yeah. They did, they donated, what was it, 100,000 COVID-19 vaccines, 70% of which came from COVAX and 30% of which came from bilateral agreements between the US. So.
Did that answer your question?
Be honest, if you didn't answer. Pardon? Okay, so when you said your question, I wanted to know, were you asking what else other than tourism? Okay, so in our main points, we spoke about some on the inevitability of interdependence and U.S. dominance. We spoke about financial and trade fusion. So not only with tourism, but there is a big, there is a lot of support that we get from the U.S. in trade. For example, if you pass by the port right now, you would see containers stacked, and majority of these containers are from the U.S. Also, we have remittances from, I would say, the diaspora and persons from our country who are overseas, who send down money, who send down goods. For example, if anybody has ever received a barrel from their family overseas, that comes and it supports the country when they send down money. Even in stuff like susus and all this type of stuff, when they send down money, it contributes to the country. So that's their contribution from the US to St. Lucia. So it's not only them contributing to us, but it's us contributing to them by helping ourselves.
Okay, we have another blue and white. Oh. Okay, we have a green and white. Right.
Good day, everyone. My question goes to Ethan.
We're not hearing you too clearly, too loudly as well.
Good day, everyone. My question goes to Ethan. During your speech, you stated that the U.S. as a trading partner showed that it is unreliable and unstable. I do not agree with that. Do you have any evidence to back up that statement?
So the U.S. in terms of unreliability. So what I'm saying, what I said in this speech is that I was speaking about how the U.S. when it's trading, when you discuss trade with the U.S. and St. Lucia, you also have to think of U.S. and CARICOM relations, because there was it's a shame I don't have my sources here, but there was an incident where we were trying to get oil from Venezuela, and when the U.S. was putting its sanctions on Venezuela, which I believe happened in 2012, 2013, they started trading less with us. They started trading less with CARICOM. And so that really hurt our industries, especially since if you think of 2012, that's the recession. And also in terms of the recession, our financial linkages to the U.S., when the U.S. dollar collapsed, the EC dollar also suffered quite a bit, because the EC dollar is tied to the American dollar. Our banks suffered. They had to stop lending out loans. So these are the examples I'd give you of financial and trade instability, in the sense that if the U.S. breaks, we break also. So, well, not break, but we suffer also. So what I'm saying, what we were arguing is that it's time to look to other possibilities. Like they're going to have a discussion on South-South cooperation today. So it's time to look to other possibilities of banking, other possibilities of trade, and stuff like that, to see how we can progress. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Of course. All right, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My question is for the proposition, and I wanted to know whether you believe that St. Lucia's long-term development is something, the ties that exist with the U.S. for the long-term development is something that should be permanent, or whether the development, we should develop far enough to be able to be independent from the hegemonic power in the future.
Wonderful question. I did not get your name.
My name is Anaya Buske.
Anaya. Wonderful question, Anaya. I do believe we should stay and have ties with the U.S., but I would lean more towards being self-sufficient. So even if we have ties with them, we must still try to build up our own. Like the opposition stated, where we claim we're small, but then we must grow. We must grow. And in my opinion, growth is important. And when we are tied to such a humongous and powerful hegemon like the US, we mustn't only depend on them, which is what we wanted to highlight when we said primary focus. Primary focus doesn't mean only focus. The US is not our only source of places we get ties. But I do agree with your prompts that we should aim to be self-sufficient overall.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, a gentle reminder before this gentleman speaks. Don't forget, when you go up to the mic, introduce yourself, tell us your name, what form you are in. We need to know more about the voices that are speaking.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Nathaniel Popo. I'm from CAS, that can be seen. I'm in Form 5. My question to the proposition is, in regards to the long-lasting effects of our connection to the US, in regards to the social, economic aspects of it, it is obvious, I'll try to keep this concise, it is obvious that some things in slavery we have kept. Things like colorism, that's certainly obvious. Things like, how we engage with each other, that much is obvious. How we speak, that's obvious. So my question to you more so boils down to, if we keep our connection with the US for the long term, for the good and the bad, and it's twofold. If we pivot and we make connections with other countries, let's say Europe, let's say Latin America, other areas, let's say make connections with them. And in another reality, where we keep our connections with the US, my question to you is, what are the positives and negatives of tying with the US and, I guess, aligning ourselves with other countries? Which scenario, ultimately, do you believe is the best outcome for us as a people?
And this ties back to the relevance of me bringing up the relevance of slavery?
In a sense. It kind of, it more boils down to the whole hegemony, and our over-reliance, because as it's obvious Rome fell, it is very possible the US may fall. I cannot tell you when, I am no, what's the word, psychic? But it is obvious that no empire lasts forever, so that's the question.
Before my secondary answers, I want to say that I totally agree with what you're saying, especially about Rome fell. And like I stated, and the opposition spoke about in 2030, we can partner with CARICOM to do this and to do that. We don't know what will happen to CARICOM in the next 5 years. We don't know what happened to the US in the next 5 years. When we look at governance and how often it changes every 5 years or 4 years, different leaders come with different rules, different tactics, different things that they want to implement on the country, in their case to make it better. So we don't know where the US will lie in the next 5 years or in the next 10 years with what they think is better for them and how it influences the countries they're tied to.
I mean, that much is obvious. I mean, yeah, that much is obvious.
Okay.
But again, my thing was, well, we don't know what the US will do, but just more so the idea that we are connected to them. Just, I'll let him answer.
What's the name again, sorry?
Nathaniel Popo.
Hi, Nathaniel. I have a question. Do you like Disneyland? Do you like Mickey Mouse?
I've never been to Disneyland.
You don't?
The last time I've been to the US was what, 7 years ago?
Oh, so you've been to the US?
A long time ago, yeah.
Okay, how were you able to do that? Wasn't it through the visas and the institutions that we have in place with the US?
I'm not denying that. That much I'm not denying, but what I want to try to keep this concise.
Yes, so...
But no, hold on.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm more trying to say is that, yeah, obviously the US has an impact on our culture, not just our culture, the culture of the world at large. That much is obvious, I am not denying that. Mm-hmm. What I am saying is, though, eventually it may get to a point where there may, and we're already seeing it on a global stage, where there's more cultural, almost homogeny among different countries. And because of how small we are, I think it is very, very easy that we will fall prey to that. I'm not sure whether it was you or the opposition who made mention of the fact that a majority of our tourism sector is based from the US. Again, tying back to what I'm trying to ask. If we had to make alliances with other countries, and if we continue our relations with the US, my question to you is, what is the best outcome socially for us as a people, where we retain who we are and we can move forward better than ever, and we do not give up, I guess, who we are as people?
Wonderful question. I think having boundaries is a good thing. Now, it seems so simple to say boundaries, but in governance and all these type of things, when we partner with these hegemons, they have their terms and we have our terms. Tell me if I'm going in the way of your question, right? Yeah. They have our terms and we have our terms. So securing our identity is putting boundaries, even if it might affect our trade and all these other things that the US might benefit, we might benefit from the US, but keeping our identity, we should know that we should have boundaries with what we allow to be done in our country and what we allow to be done with our assets.
Okay. Again, I will try.
Yes, continue.
Okay. I don't want to overdo it, but what was I about to say? Okay, as you've just said, obviously boundaries will need to be in place. That much is clear. But again, tying back to, I think, my former question, if BRICS, I guess organizations like BRICS, Latin America, again, it more boils down to if we had to partner with them, if we had to completely pivot to Latin America, to BRICS, to Taiwan, would we, compared to the US, would we retain as much? Because obviously the US has a long-standing history with, I mean, not just the US, but with slavery, with colorism, with elitism, with white supremacism. That's it. But that much is obvious. My question, again, just boils down to what is the best outcome for us if we had to pivot to them, if we had to go to other sources besides the US? Just ignoring economics for a second, it's just socially, for us as a people, what's the best outcome?
Okay, wonderful question, but I am not sure I can answer that, so I will pass it over to the opposition to answer that.
Okay, can you repeat your question, please?
Okay, the question is, I guess, what would be the best outcome for us as a people? Is it that we stay with the US and we continue, well, we want to be their lapdog, but we stay with the US and we continue to rely on them, and the long-term effects of that would be, I guess, a loss of culture is obviously going to happen, but a quick loss of culture, dare I say. And what if, on the other hand, we sided with BRICS, Latin America, other countries? What is the best outcome for us as a people? Do we side with the US? Do we side with other nations? What do we do?
Okay, so the thing that you may think of because of the way we debated is that we said that it shouldn't be our primary focus. But if you remember Errol Barrow's quote, it's friends of all, satellites of none. So I'm not saying that we be enemies with the US, despite my derogatory remarks on fast food. I think that sorry about that, by the way. I know everybody loves their fast food, myself included. So but anyway, so as I was saying, we have to be friends with the US, definitely. But we also have to, we can't exclude the other partners, right? I was mentioning.
Sorry to interject. I'm not saying we completely discard the US. What I'm saying is we move from having them as a primary ally, because I'm more saying with you on this, instead of having them as a primary ally, again, socially, how will we engage? If instead we go from the US to other parties, to other countries, what is the outcome?
Well,
we do not completely disengage with them, but we prioritize other relations.
So it's not prioritizing other relations is it's an interesting idea, but it's based on how the US economy will handle. Because if the US continues to be unstable in its economy, in its whatever, then we will have to prioritize other relations. We'll have to prioritize our relations with Africa. We had a state visit from the Nigerian president not too long ago. We have a discussion on South-South cooperation later today. So if the US continues to be this unstable, we may have to, I think we will have to, in any event, move closer to South-South cooperation. However, we cannot discount the US's involvement in the region. The US has played a pivotal role, as the proposition will tell you. They've played a pivotal role. So we're not saying to completely disregard the US. What we're saying is we have to shift our focus to the realities of a multipolar world. The CARICOM does not live in a bubble. We do not live in a bubble floating in space or in a different galaxy. I mean, if you take a boat from Trinidad, you take a fishing boat from Trinidad and sail enough south for an hour or two, you'll probably hit Venezuela, right? So these kind of things, we have to develop strategic alliances with everyone. We have to develop with Latin America, Africa, Asia, because this is the reality that St. Lucia lives in, that St. Lucia and CARICOM lives in. We don't live in a bubble. We live with the other economies. We must deal with the other economies as we see fit.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Glasgow. I apologize for cutting you short, but as they say, this could go on forever. I think your question essentially is asking us to predict the future of what will happen. And I believe that our debaters up here are not inclined to speak on that. I think the ideal outcome would be a thriving economy, and I have to cut your question short there. So now we will take your question. No, oh, she was up before you. Sorry.
Good day, everyone. My name is Vishan Emmanuel, and my question is towards all the debaters. As we know, the U.S. is currently going through a civil unrest and a economic, I would say, decline. And so my question is simply that, seeing as St. Lucia has very strong ties with the U.S., and the U.S. has a very controversial opinion, I would say, on international relations, do you believe that our strong ties with the U.S. would influence, maybe even negatively, influence our ability to create ties with other nations?
Yes.
Okay. You answer?
Yes. The short answer is yes, because, like you said, the U.S. is very controversial. Very controversial. So some countries will just not want to deal with that. They will not want to take that on. They will not want to deal with it. Deal with the social effects, the drawbacks from trade, the drawbacks from the economy that can affect their economy. They would not want to deal with that, and it's happening right now, especially in trade and transport and all these type of things. Look at the tariffs on shipping on China. How much time it take for my Shin package to reach St. Lucia? The answer is too much time. So a lot of countries wouldn't want to deal with that. That's my short answer for that question.
I remember Phoebe's response, but your question was, sorry, can you repeat your question, please? I just want to make sure I don't answer something incorrect.
So my simple question is that, do you believe that the U.S.'s controversial opinions in international relations will negatively affect St. Lucia's ability to create ties with other nations?
Okay, so I have to divide this question into two parts, the controversial and the ties with other nations. So in terms of controversial, the U.S., I wouldn't say is controversial as a nation. The U.S. is made up of people. All these people have different opinions. What I can say is that U.S. leadership, I would say over the past 10 years, is a bit unstable. That's what I would say, right? Because you have some political leaders on both sides saying not controversial opinions, but I would say that the instability of the U.S. in their approach to geopolitics makes it so that CARICOM has to choose other partners. So that ties into the second point. Should we go for other partners? Definitely. Definitely is the answer. Because, what was the second part of your question again?
The second part of my question was, would the U.S.'s influence negatively affect St. Lucia's ability to create ties with other nations?
So would the U.S.'s influence negatively? I would say not entirely, because St. Lucia is an independent nation. So our government sets St. Lucian policy when they go to these international summits. They set the current terms, right? Because St. Lucia's terms 2 years ago, 3 years ago, 5 years ago isn't going to be the terms now, right? So from that perspective, I would say that the U.S. influence, does it negatively affect? I would say no, because our trading partners realize our predicament. They aren't just going in, why are you influenced by the U.S.? They understand, they reason with our predicament, and they try to work through solutions, because they understand why these things are happening, right? Partners understand, and so they move forward with trade in that manner. So I do not think that U.S. influence negatively impacts trade. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
The young lady at the back.
Okay, so the young lady at the back has a question, but before I continue, you can come up, but before I continue, let me just say wow. First of all, as secondary school students, I'm quite impressed with the questions that you are all proposing, but I think, in my honest opinion, some of the questions that you are asking our humble debaters should be proposed to maybe the President of the United States himself, because as it stands now, the US, as we know, is very unstable. We can see what's going on. The economy, the US dollar is slowly crashing. Not just that, but the price of gold also is increasing because people are investing more in that because the dollar is decreasing. So because of that, there are lots of questions that you might have that we want answers to, yes, but unless Mr. Donald Trump himself, or unless Mr. Prime Minister of St. Lucia, or maybe the President of the Caribbean Commonwealth Association can answer them for you, then I suggest you try not to blow the heads of our debaters, although your questions are very sophisticated and I am impressed, to say the least. You can continue.
Madam Moderator, before she continues, I just want to say, impressed, I wouldn't say impressed, I would say expected, because the quality of our secondary school students in St. Lucia is above and beyond. I wouldn't say I'm impressed. I expect that because they're brilliant, they're smart, they're beautiful, they're knowledgeable. I wouldn't say I'm impressed because you would expect that from students of any secondary school in St. Lucia. So props to all of you all.
So good morning, my name is Caitlin Kisner. This is a question for the proposition. I noticed when you were making your speech, you noted about tourism and foreign direct investment. So the Caribbean, as you said, is largely dependent on tourism. As you know, we are a homogeneous society, and that leaves us vulnerable. But one could argue that this is a reason why the US shouldn't be our primary focus. You specifically stated that when the US pulls their funding or pulls their support, we lose funds, we lose jobs, we use different things that we require. So to me, that sounds like a reason why we should branch out, why we shouldn't have it as our primary focus. Like the opposition said, we should not put all our eggs in one basket. So to say that the US is our primary source is going to lead to economic ruin for St. Lucia. So I wanted to know your opinions on that.
I just want to say quickly that you mentioned, we stated that, forgive me, partnering with the US partnering with them, if there is an issue with them, it will affect us. The opposition stated that, not the proposition.
No, I stated that you said that there is evidence that when the US, is no longer, we benefit the most when the US is partnering with us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for example, our tourism, their flights, their things like that, we get tourists coming to St. Lucia, we get more money, we get more jobs. So if I remember correctly, you stated that if we lose that partnership, we lose the tourists who are coming in, and we lose our jobs.
Okay, what's the name, sorry?
That's the reason why we should branch out from only the US.
Okay, so to answer your question, most of our tourists, more than 50% actually of our tourists are American, but they're not our most valuable tourists. Do you know that? The UK comes in St. Lucia and spends much more than 1,000. You can take one UK tourist and that would equate to 1,000 US travelers, because what happens is we have what you call stopover travelers and we have stayover travelers, and majority of the US travelers are stopover and they don't spend more than 10 US in our country.
I agree.
Yeah, so that is cruise ship. That's our cruise ship, which is stopover, obviously. But when you take UK travelers, they stay longer and they spend more because our Caribbean relations with the UK is excellent. You can take Jamaica and the UK, for example. It's much easier for Jamaicans to travel, not only travel to the UK, but actually stay and build a life in the UK than in the US, due to all the upheaval with diplomatic ties and whatnot.
I agree.
Answer your question?
Sort of.
I just like to say that branching out does not mean changing your primary focus, and that is not putting all your eggs in one basket, because that means having multiple options.
I agree with the way you stated that, and I agree with that statement. But specifically, my issue is in relation to the point that were put across, where it was said that primary does not equal only, which I absolutely agree with. Like, your primary source does not mean that that's your only thing, but primary does mean that's the most focus, right? Primary means that you are putting most of your energy, your time, your money into that area. And when putting all of that, like even you said that England, like British tourists are, like, they provide more money for us, right? So then you could argue that maybe then we should put England or Britain as our primary focus. Because to say, well, the US is our primary focus, but you know, England, sometimes they give us more money, that doesn't make sense.
Who won the war between the French and England?
Well, to quote their own words, why are we quoting historical things? Shouldn't we focus on...
Yeah. Well, the UK does have a lasting impact on St. Lucia. The UK did have a lasting impact on St. Lucia.
I agree. I'll go back, but I just want to say, I also have that same point for when she said, why are we talking about Cuba and Haiti and these things? Haiti, their revolt is the reason why we stand here today as free individuals. Their first revolt is the reason why the rest of the Caribbean countries revolted, the reason why we gained that independence. We followed in their footsteps. So to say, why are we talking about the past shapes the future. If you forget the past, then you will relive it.
Okay, thank you. That was wonderful. Wow.
Good morning again. My name is Anabuski.
Wait, hold on. Sorry to interject. If you would not like to pose your questions to our humble debaters, you may pose them to the Ministry of that. Oh, okay. You can also pose your questions to the Ministry of Diaspora Affairs. Same thing, and External Affairs. After, yeah. So all of your questions, your meaningful discussions, you can pose them to the ones who know the most about it. Okay, you can continue now.
Okay, so my question is for the opposition this time. And you guys spoke of the United States being unreliable and possibly taking advantage of us. But I want to know if you believe that the countries you have suggested for alternatives, such as Guyana, Venezuela, and the countries involved in BRICS, might be attempting to do the same thing and might also be unreliable and might also not have St. Lucia at their best interest.
That's a very good question, Anaya. So, what Errol Barrow, so I'll go back to the quote that we like to quote, which is Errol Barrow, first Prime Minister of Barbados, 1967, to the UN, friends of all, satellites of none. So what I'm saying here is that you may be right, and the other countries, they'll have their own interests at heart. But the general theme in geopolitics is a theme of the U.S., right? So as of right now, what we see is deals happening to kind of circumvent the U.S.'s authority. And so by trying to circumvent the U.S.'s authority, A byproduct of that, a good byproduct, would be that we can get some development in. Development in from Africa, development in from Asia, development in from even Australia, even Japan. These countries, they've signed deals with us. So you may be right, and these countries may not have our best interests at heart. But the thing is, when you put your eggs in multiple baskets, they are more likely to take you a lot more seriously, because they'll say, if we don't make a good deal with them, they'll just go to this other country and make a better deal. So in that sense, yes, the Africa, Asia, Latin America, they may not, they will obviously want self-interest. Everything's in the interest of self. But in terms of the geopolitical landscape, they may see CARICOM. CARICOM can be seen as a way to branch out and to make sure that we get all this help, all this investment, so that we can benefit and so that we can become a greater global actor than we are already. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Not a problem.
Okay, so we had some people at the back. So I think we should form a line. Beg your pardon? No, not like that. Sorry.
The
Sorry.
young lady in the Beaufort Conference.
And the boy at the back,
They have been
yes.
standing there for the longest while. Yeah.
Just saying, we might not be able to take everybody, as you can see. Yeah, keep your points concise, because when the judges come back, our discussion ends, unfortunately, with our, yeah. Okay, so your name, your form, and your concise question.
Good morning, my name is Okima Smith. I'm a student of the Beaufort Comprehensive Secondary School A-Level Department, which is Form 6. My question is, for the proposition, do you think St. Lucia's close tie with powerful countries like the US causes the government to follow foreign interests instead of focusing on the needs and independence of the St. Lucian people? Well, I basically saying that does outside influence make it harder for our country to make its own decisions freely without pressure from bigger nations?
The US will impact the world on us regardless of what we do. But I don't think that the US directly impacts like what we do on a micro level, like St. Lucians and these entrepreneurs we have. So say for example, we have this young lady of recent, I think it was 2023. She built a website for entrepreneurs, motivated entrepreneurs, and they are able to expand their markets and their goods and services, obviously, to the US. But it's a case where we can't do what we need to do in St. Lucia. The US doesn't necessarily need to come here and say, oh, I need to bring what I need to bring back from my country. No, that's not the case. So St. Lucia is not necessarily impacted that much by the US.
Okay, thank you.
Is that what you were referring to?
Yes, okay.
So I know the question is directed toward the proposition, but can you repeat it again? Because I think we could have a good answer as well.
My question was, do you think St. Lucia close ties with powerful countries like the US causes the government to follow foreign interests instead of focusing on the needs and independence of St. Lucia? So basically, does the outside influence make it harder for us to make our own decisions freely without the pressure of the bigger nations?
Okay, so the short answer, based on what you've heard me say and what my colleague has said, is yes. It makes us, it's very, very hard to make decisions. It's very hard to make geopolitical decisions. I mean, even when I was talking earlier about the zone of peace that CARILEC signed a few years ago, that decision was very hard to come by, you know, because we had to ask ourselves, you know, can the US come in and just say it's no longer a zone of peace? And the answer to that is yes. Because, see, I mean, we all Latin American, all Caribbean countries sat in a room, we signed an agreement and said, we're going to try our best not to have war. And when Guyana and Venezuela were breaking out, it wasn't the US who stepped in and fixed it, although they'd love to tell you that. It was Venezuela and Guyana sitting, the Maduro and the president of Guyana, I believe his name is Irfan Ali. They sat together and they said, okay, let's see what we can do. And then they had a little handshake and they went back to their countries. So to answer yes, there's a lot that we can do. Caribbean, Latin America, our partnerships, there's a lot that we can do. But there's also the worry of what if the US comes in and basically says, forget what they said. Who cares what they said? You know? It's a real geopolitical challenge. And so it ties in exactly to what we're saying, which is when we have more investments, when we're friends of all, satellites of none, it allows us more independence, if you understand me. All right, does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Not a problem.
Good morning, or good afternoon, I'm not sure what the time is. Afternoon. My name is Akonao Xavier Machoko, and I'm a student that studies at the Leon Hess Comprehensive Secondary School. I have a question for the proposition and the opposition. I'll start with the proposition. In the mode of US politics, specifically geopolitics, the US has provided humanitarian aid to various countries, namely Ukraine and Afghanistan, through the international humanitarian law. Given the instability to provide sustainable support, don't you think the US attempts to instate diplomatic relations with St. Lucia puts us at a disadvantage?
Would you like to answer?
You're still there?
Anyone? Just a reminder. Just a reminder that your questions, those in-depth questions that are so important, can be posed to the ministry afterwards. So you can have an in-depth conversation with somebody that knows more about it.
I feel like we can still give our input on the question because
yes, I'll just remind
this is
them.
relevant to a quote you actually stated within your...
So can you repeat the last part of your question, please? The question?
From where? Would you like me to repeat the question?
No. Yes.
Yes. Okay. So the US has provided humanitarian aid to various countries, namely Ukraine and Afghanistan, through the international humanitarian law. Given the instability to provide sustainable support, don't you think the US attempts to instate diplomatic relations with St. Lucia puts us at a disadvantage?
So, the diplomatic relations between us and the US. I'll say that the diplomatic relations we have with the US are, okay. So, the diplomatic relations we have with the US, I would say neither puts us at an advantage nor a disadvantage. It puts us in a very neutral position because a disadvantage would mean that the US is completely harming us, which the US isn't. By helping US development, sometimes we get some good development as well. So you get the dual benefit. When our nationals go and study in the US, they learn nursing, they learn accounting or engineering, whatever like that, and they come back to St. Lucia and they help the economy. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. So it's not a, sorry, I may have drifted off from your question. You want to say something?
About that part where you talked about how people emigrate to the US after probably receiving, some financial support. I find that usually in these circumstances, we actually are left at a debt, especially for the scholars that go to the States. A good example of this is how you may receive a scholarship to go to Columbia University. However, the tuition is about $91K per year. Mind you, if you stay at that college for, let's say, 4 years, that will leave you with a lot of debt. So before you can contribute to an economy that isn't from the US, the problem now is you having to solve the issue of paying debt to the states. So now you're not contributing to the St. Lucian economy, but rather the US economy.
So thank you for that. But yeah, you are right that there's a lot of debt issues and things of that nature with our diplomatic ties to the U.S., OECS, CARICOM, St. Lucia's ties to the OECS. There are a lot of holes, but I wouldn't say that it puts us in an entirely disadvantageous situation or an entirely advantageous situation. I would say it puts us in walking on a tightrope, right? Because we have to serve our interests, but we also have to make sure that we don't go and make a deal and the U.S. is mad at us and they pull their funding, right? So it's tightrope walking between the interests of the Caribbean and the interests of the U.S. So I would say it's more of a neutral thing with the U.S., which is why we still have relations with them despite the instability that's going on. But yeah, so the advantages of a U.S. thing is that they help fund some of our stuff that we would not be able to fund by ourselves. They fund us directly sometimes, although that's been changing a little bit, and sometimes they fund us indirectly through the UN. So these kind of partnerships you don't want to break. But also, you also have to take a look at the others, right? You have to take a look at the other economies, what's going on over there to see if you can. So that's a question for the ministry, and that's a question for the government as well, what you asked, very good. But I think, from my point of view, they have to walk along a tightrope to make sure that we remain friends of all, satellites of none, and to make sure that we advance our own interests while at the same time making sure the U.S. we have good interests with the U.S. and good interests with everyone. Answer your question?
Yes, but I have a second question for the opposition. Sorry about that. So you discussed about...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah.
Would you be able to ask the opposition afterwards? We are trying to speed up this process.
Okay, sure. Just don't forget about
because
what
we're
you
trying
said.
to get as many contributions as possible in this limited space of time. Okay.
Okay.
But you seem like a very bright young man. You will come to us after that because I do have my input for you.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, so please be with us.
All right, thank you so much.
For the rest of you, I noticed there's about 5 of you on the line. Please, 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 if you can review your question, and if it seems like something that maybe the higher-ups can answer, you can probably save it for them. We are very, very short on time. The judges will be back soon. So if it's any smaller questions or queries you have for the opposition or proposition, then feel free to come and comment on that.
And also to our debaters, can you shorten your responses as well? Try to...
Because the question that I had was relevant to what they were actually talking about. So if I were... Yeah, sure. Okay.
Not trying to disregard what you're saying.
That's okay. All right, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and thank you for your time.
Thank you
Thank
as
you.
well. Good morning. Good afternoon. I kind of sleepy. My name is Saisha Albert. I'm in Form 5 from Lyoness. I understand both points, obviously. But I understand, my question is for the opposition. I understand the opposition was saying we not only focus on the US, but we focus on other countries. Now, the proposition also said how the US has given us, many advantages. So my question is, if St. Lucia focuses on regional or alternative alliances instead, what concrete evidence or example suggests these would yield better long-term development outcomes?
Okay, so in the speech, I talk about two main initiatives or one main initiative. That is the RIGHT project, which is a project to strengthen OECS institutions, to provide more money to fund different sectors that are needed in the judges, to fund more institutions in the OECS. So that's one of the institutions I mentioned, the RIGHT. You also have, as interestingly as the proposition mentioned, our partnership with the African Union to get the vaccines from these multinational corporations. That was also a partnership that we did. We've also had partnerships with Japan in the past to strengthen regional to strengthen relations. They have, I believe, there's now a CARICOM Japan summit and stuff like that. So to answer your question, there's already evidence. I can't say evidence for long-term development because long-term takes a while. But certainly for short-term development, there's been some real concrete proof that the U.S. isn't necessary for all of that. Does that answer your question?
So I wanted to also ask, do you think it will be more effective? Do you think we will achieve more?
If we partner with more countries? Absolutely. Absolutely. Because, like I said, we live in a multipolar world. We cannot act unipolar in a multipolar world. That's like playing Bluetooth music from an audio cassette, as my friend mentioned. It simply won't work. It simply won't work. That you have to be multipolar in a multipolar world. So that was the whole basis of our argument. Does that answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
No problem.
Okay, guys, as you can see, the judges are back. You know what that means, but we will take one more question. Take 3? Okay. Okay.
Good afternoon. My name is Mia Jagannath. My question is for the proposition. Do you believe that keeping hemogenic ties with the U.S. in terms of foreign direct investments, so the U.S. investors buying land and properties on our island, would lead to gentrification of our country and culture?
Can you rephrase that question, please?
Okay, so do you believe that allowing foreign investors to come and buy land and property on our island would lead to the loss of our culture and also diminishing like our people on the country on a whole? Because you allowing a bigger country to come in and just buy land, and we're selling to them, and it has happened. We're continuously doing it, just selling. We're losing ourselves.
To answer this beautiful question that you've asked, I want to highlight that FDI, foreign direct investments, are people-to-people investments, not government-funded not government-controlled investments. So when they come down to St. Lucia and they buy land and they build Airbnbs, that stays here. That's money for St. Lucia. That happens in St. Lucia. They're not buying land in the States. They're buying it here. They're building here. The money is generating here. If you want to go to an Airbnb for your birthday, the money is in St. Lucia. It's staying and it's generated in St. Lucia. So that's not like them coming from up there and then they come in and take all our money, buying all our land. We're not giving them the land at 1 cent. They're buying the land and the money is contributing to the country.
Okay.
And they do have, I will say that the US will have a cultural impact on us. Because they always have, everybody like going to school with their spray gun and their Jordan and their hair high like afros and stuff. It already has an impact, but that solely depends on us. And it doesn't matter how many Americans come into St. Lucia. You will always see your grandmother cooking from a coal pot if she so decides to. You will always see by the market, you'll always see the people selling by the central market. It's up to us. We tend to, you will see. Yeah. So it's up to us, basically.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just like to say not necessarily. It depends on our proactive decisions.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Ethan Alexander, second year student pursuing an associate degree in sociology and a candidate for PRO of the debate club and candidate for department representative for sociology and economics. My question is for the proposition. Ethan stated that countries like Cuba and Haiti was negatively affected by U.S. power. What is your opinion on that, and do you have any fear of that recurring on St. Lucia?
My opinion on the matter. You ask for my opinion on the matter?
Yeah.
It negatively affected them, and it negatively affected the Caribbean on a large. Like you said, Haiti is a giant hub, and someone came up and made the point that Haiti's revolution and their independence influenced the entire Caribbean's independence. So I would say, yes, that did affect the Caribbean, and my opinion on that is wrong. And do I think it will happen again? I do not know. That's my response. I do not know. I do not know what the current government is doing in America, what the upcoming ones will do. So to that question, personally, I do not know.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Kyle Bailey, and I'm in Form 5. And my question is to anybody on the stage who will answer it. But I wanted to know if y'all know of any, or if there are any measures or backup plans in place if the U.S. decides to cut ties with us.
Okay, so there are two documents you have to take a look at when you're taking a look at this. You have to look at the U.S.'s trade relations with St. Lucia as of recent, and you also have to take a look at the Monroe Doctrine. So the Monroe Doctrine essentially says that the U.S. has a right to secure the countries of the Western Hemisphere. So Caribbean, Latin America, they define it in the Monroe Doctrine as their sphere of influence. So if we decide we don't want to be in that sphere of influence, as the Leahy Law said, what they could do is cut back on their development projects to us directly, because they fund the OECS directly and they fund CARICOM directly. And a part of the question you asked, you were asking about if we cut ties with the U.S., right?
No.
No.
I said if they cut ties with us, do
They
we have
cut
any
ties.
backup
If
plans?
they cut ties with us,
Do we have a backup plan?
do we have a backup plan?
Or any plan?
Well, I wouldn't be privy to the ministry's current plans. I'm not privy to that, but I certainly hope that St. Lucia has put some thought into this. That our ministers, our leaders in government have put some thought into your question, and I hope that St. Lucia has a plan for these kind of things, but I cannot answer that question. I do not have access to the documents that would be able to answer your question. But it's a very important question that you asked.
Thank you, Mr. Glasgow.
A pleasant good afternoon to all. My name is Alexia John Baptist, and I'm a second-year associate degree student at Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, majoring in biology. My question is for the proposition. In your rebuttal, you mentioned that we can't look to the future, but look to the present. Based on the knowledge of the current American administration, based on the current American administration and what we know they look for as in our CIB program and so forth, how do you think that can affect St. Lucia's largest income, which you stated is the tourism? And do you think that the opposition had a value point in which we can expand and change our primary source? So based on the current administration, do you think that we should keep St. Lucia? Do you think that we should keep America as our primary focus for development? Since you say we can't look to the future and to the present, and we know that the current administration of America is putting sanctions on certain countries, and St. Lucia, along with some other Caribbean countries, was listed in consideration of that. So since that is our point today, that America is our primary focus, do you think that should still be the case?
And this is a personal question, like you're directing it to me. Well, if it's directed, I would say yes and no. Personally, I think the US is quite crazy. But I keep on going back to that point that administrations change. So what this present administration may administer now, the next administration can come and say, hey, that's not right, I don't want it, let's change it. So I think it all depends on the administration and what they decide to administer as their plan. So if we know that we will benefit more with them being our primary source, definitely we should go for it. But if we know that we will be at a loss having them as our primary source, definitely we should not.
But based on the facts that was presented through you and the opposition, as well as some of the large variety of questions asked, and how we see the world going, do you think that it is in St. Lucia's best interest? Because as we know, America is America first, so shouldn't St. Lucia be St. Lucia first? And if St. Lucia has to be St. Lucia first, is America being our prime focus putting St. Lucia's objective for the people and for our economy first?
I do believe in self-sufficiency, 100%, but my answer remains the same, yes and no.
Okay, thank you. Have a blessed day.
You also.
Wow, wow, wow. We have a room of bright people. Wow. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. I just like to mention that we have Dr. Thomas Samuel in the room with us, too. He's one of our judges, and he is an economist by training, as mentioned earlier. So, again, some of your questions can be posed to him. So now what we've all been waiting for, the much awaited results are finally in. So now I would like to invite one of our esteemed judges to deliver a few remarks. Please welcome him with a round of applause.
Thank you very much, Madam Moderator. And let me say, I think you will all agree with me today that we've been treated to a very wonderful debate, and today debating is alive and well in St. Lucia. And I want to commend and congratulate the team of South Louis Debating Society for the very impressive work that they have done in preparing these young students in handling this very important topic. It means that we are really preparing our leaders who will be our policy formulators later down the road. Having listened to the debate, now there's a difference between debating is a skill. It's about how well you can convince your audience, how well you can convey a message. There's an emotional dimension, there's a factual dimension. It's about how well you can connect. And I think it's always a challenge. So it's not necessarily about being right or factual. That is helpful, that's an ally. But it's simply about how you can combine all of these elements together to make a case. So take the decisions of the judges or the results of the debate in that context. I want to place that first before you. Okay? So it's not necessarily our individual viewpoints or my own perspective or yours, but the team, how well they performed together in convincing you and the judges of their message. So I want to establish that first, and then I want to make some general comments. Not to start another debate. I have been asked and guided. Yes, but as a small state, clearly this is an issue that we should concern ourselves with. And as we try to navigate the shifting dynamics of the geopolitical landscape, which is ever changing, we have choices to make Do we ally with this country, or do we move in a different direction, etc.? And we don't have all the answers, but I could say to you that some of the themes, some of the issues that underpin that decision was explored here today. One of them, first of all, is the question of smallness. Now, smallness can be a blessing, but sometimes it can be a constraint. With markets, the size of your markets, your population, your resource base, and you know all of that. So that then tells you, how should I proceed? Now, I want to draw upon V.S. Naipaul. I'm sure some of you might have learned of one of our luminary giants in the region, Nobel laureate from Trinidad. He looked to nature for the answer. And he said, in much the same way that the small fish exists in a symbiotic relationship with the large fish to survive in the ocean, in the long migration from the warm waters in the tropics all the way to the cold waters of the frigid north. This is really how small states should behave. You don't have to confront the hegemons directly, but you can exist in their sphere of influence in a symbiotic way where you benefit. Because we have certain vulnerabilities, but we want to build resilience, and we need to take a pragmatic approach to doing just that. And this is why we find that's why regional integration is the rational response for small states, because on their own they don't have critical mass and viability. So they need to create what they call viable constructs, and regionalism is the answer to that. Now, even with the OECS, which is our smallest regional bloc, it's less than 1 million people. Now, you understand that? Try to place that in context. You know, that's less, as you say, less than the number of persons in the dark hole in Calcutta, as we have heard. And let's take the Caribbean. If I were to tell you that the Caribbean space on a big world map would be considered, the CARICOM would be considered a French-speaking space, you would disagree with me. But with the presence of Haiti, which is the largest and most populous, it is in fact a French-speaking space. So the English-speaking CARICOM is only about 6 million. Okay? So these are the realities. Now, if you think of the Caribbean, the wider Caribbean, is Spanish-speaking, is it? Because when we add Cuba, we add Dominican Republic, etc., and so on. So I want to place these numbers in context. Now, even in our region, let's take our own region, smallness. Are you aware St. Lucia is, you can put St. Kitts, Grenada in St. Lucia. Are you aware of that? And you could put all of them in Dominica. And you could put all the OACS islands in Trinidad. And you could put all the islands in the Caribbean in Guyana. So that gives you an idea of how the idea of, the concept of smallness, and just to help you understand this. So I've said that to you. Now, we heard a lot about the BRICS as the multipolar world and so on. Now, the BRICS is making a case, building on what we call South-South cooperation, and we're seeing that as a sort of a counterweight going on. But I think I have, okay, my time is up. All right, I will stop. But just let me say that I enjoyed being here and enjoyed the discussion. I would really have liked to have had, as I have done in the past, an opportunity to speak to the students before, to have further insights on the subject. But I will stop here under my instructions from Mrs. Finest, and to say I just think my heart was warmed listening to the debaters, Ethan and Phoebe and Liquan and Jaden. Yes, very good job, guys. A round of applause once again. And see you next time. Thank you very much.
Some assistance, please.
I can just hold my hand.
Okay. We can hear me clearly, right? Okay, thank you, Mr. Samuel, for your insights. And now we move on to a very special part of today's program, the presentation of awards. To make these presentations, I now invite Director of the NCPC, Mrs. Lisa Floramontut, to the stage, and Mrs. Fanes with the results.
I'm going to delay the results just a little bit longer. First, let me thank Dr. Samuel. Dr. Samuel is not used to being on that end of SALCC debates. He's normally with the students. And so he missed doing the lecture this time and all of the coaching that he would normally do. And we put him in the position of being the one there to figure out all of this. So Dr. Samuel, I'm going to put it out there to the teachers that there's a resource. We have lots of resources in St. Lucia in terms of our experts who are very willing to come to the schools to assist with the students. And Dr. Samuel is one of them. For years, he has been coaching our students. So a round of applause for our very own. Even Dr. Ernest Hilaire has given us time. Tell me who else, Ms. Jacobs, Mr. Honorable Alva Baptiste, they have come in, and so we allow the students to hear all of those. And this year, for the last year or so, we've had Mr. Tafao Williams coming in to lend his expertise to assist the students. So rich resource, and we'll be looking more to the ministry. So we will be gifting all of our judges with tokens of appreciation. And before I announce the results, we really want to recognize our two students who led today's ceremony. So Ms. Jadia Estava, who was our moderator, where did she disappear to? Please come up to receive a token of appreciation. I think this is the first time that we have thrown Jada into this position. I think she did a wonderful job. She held her own. She had a lot of ad-libbing to do to keep things going during the debate, and I think she represented very well. Yes. And we also want to recognize our MC, our Mistress of Ceremonies for today, Ms. Janique Polius, who also did an excellent job. Both of them are first-year students. They are only just getting their feet wet with the SALCC Debate Society, but they have had experience at their secondary schools, and that's why we want to encourage you at the secondary schools to take the opportunities for public speaking, because you can go very, very far with them. We want to bring the judges up. Okay, so let's recognize our judges on the stage. We believe in Dr. Samuel for last. I want to start with Mr. Yashid Charles. You heard his intro earlier. Young man, also a graduate of the college, and he now works with OACS, and he is a Toastmaster, so taking his public speaking very seriously. But I had to break up the debate that was happening downstairs because all of those economic minds, world minds coming together. So thank you so much, Mr. Yashid Charles. And our other debater, we pulled him in at the last minute, and we thank him so much for coming through. He is from this ministry, Mr. Kimbert Evans. And of course, Dr. Thomas Samuel for his expertise and time here today. Now serving in his capacity as a consultant. He's retired, so he has a lot of time on his hands, so you can feel free to take advantage. And we also want to recognize our timekeeper, who is also a graduate of the South Louis Community College, current employee at the college, and he is He was a debater, part of the SALCC Debate Society, and now he is a staff advisor to the Debate Society, Mr. Rinkage King. So you see how you move up in capacity from student to staff advisor of the Debate Society. And we would like to recognize Mr. Tafao Williams, who we said has spent quite a bit of time with the students. So the NCPC is very happy for your time and energy. And he was pulled in by our debate advisor, Ms. Lorimer Jacobs, who has kept the society alive for a number of years at the college. And now for the results. We will begin with the best speaker. So each judge evaluated each of the speakers, and we totaled the points across the 3 judges, and coming out with 265 points, the best speaker for this second SALCC NCPC debate is Mr. Ethan Glasgow. Energy, passion, excitement. Ethan brought it all today, and I must commend all of our speakers today. They did a wonderful job, but one had to top, and Ethan topped it with 265 points. And again, Dr. Samuel said, it's which team brings it, whether you agree or disagree with their point of view. So now for the addition of the points across judges with each speaker plus the rebuttal. Point difference, just about 10 points difference. Second place, 587 points. And should we invite the representative from Republic Bank to present the trophy for second place, please? We have with us Mr. Kareem Vinay, branch manager of Republic Bank. Please welcome him. One of the sponsors for this event. And every debater is leaving here, not just with a trophy, but with multiple gifts, compliments the sponsors and the National Productivity Council. Second place, 587 points. We have Team Proposition, led by Miss Phoebe Popo and Mr. Jaden Leo. Please come up to receive your trophies. Yeah, you present.
Okay, we should. Okay.
They did a wonderful job. We bought into everything that they said. But copying first place in this 2025. Sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, there are some more prizes. So come up, guys. So that was just your trophy. And afterwards, Miss will tell us all of the other things that are in the goodie bag for our students. There is a certificate of participation. Oh, sorry. Oh, that's the startup account. Yes. Okay, Mrs. Matthew will explain that to us after. Compliments Republic Bank. Yes, for Phoebe and for Jaden. Startup accounts from Republic Bank, a nice little change to start your investment and saving for future. And now for the goodie bag, compliments the National Competitive and Productivity Council. Don't be jealous of what's in the goodie bag. Work hard next year. Congratulations to Jaden Leo. And of course, in first place, the winners of this 2025 debate, we have the opposition, led by Mr. Ethan Glasgow with Laquan Louis. Don't go too far. You two are going to get startup accounts. Yeah. First for Ethan. And make sure you see Miss afterwards, and they will give you instructions on how to redeem your certificate, so how to proceed with it. Thank you very much, Mr. Vunai from Republic Bank. And for your goodie bags, thank you very much. I will hand over now for you to hear. Miss, you were supposed to say what was in the goodie bag to me. You told me, no? Oh, Miss Mathura is going to do that? No problem. Welcome, Ms. Sharma Mathura, who's going to tell us a little bit about the prizes.
Good day, everyone. My name is Shama Mathra, Deputy Director at the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council. I must say St. Lucia's future looks bright, and I'm hoping that the prizes and respective sponsors will encourage other schools to participate next year. So for the prizes and respective sponsors, all trophies are sponsored by Republic Bank Limited. The 2 Samsung Galaxy tablets and the 2 Samsung Galaxy mobile phones are sponsored by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council and the Government of St. Lucia. A total of $1,500 in massive vouchers as sponsored by the National Competitiveness and Productivity Council. A total of $1,500 in cash is sponsored by St. Lucia Linens. Startup accounts are sponsored by the Republic Bank Limited. So the winners got $500 each in the startup accounts, and the runners-up, or the second place, they got $250 in the startup accounts respectively. The paraphernalia is sponsored by the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project and the NCPC. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to say it has been a pleasure serving as your Mistress of Ceremonies for today. I encourage you to continue participating in the activities this week, as the ones listed earlier. Please enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye. And before we leave, we will be having the votes of thanks delivered by Ms. Charles.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, esteemed judges, moderator, mistress of ceremony, valued guests, students, teachers, and of course, our brilliant debaters. On behalf of the NCPC, the Productivity Awareness Week Planning Committee, and the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, it is my pleasure to deliver the vote of thanks for today's engaging and thought-provoking debate competition. First and foremost, a heartfelt thank you to our debaters who tackled a complex and highly relevant topic with passion, insight, and intellectual depth. You challenged ideas, questioned assumptions, and gave us all much to consider as we reflect on St. Lucia's development path in a rapidly globalizing world. To our judges, thank you for generously lending your time and expertise, your thoughtful evaluations, and fair judgment ensured the integrity and high standards of today's event. To the lecturers and debate coach, thank you for your guidance and mentorship. The quality of discourse we witnessed today is a clear reflection of your dedication to nurturing critical and analytical thinking among our students. We are also deeply grateful to the organizing team and support staff who worked tirelessly behind the scenes, from logistics to communications to hospitality. Your efforts ensured the smooth execution of today's event and are sincerely appreciated. A warm thank you as well to our audience, both here in person and those joining us online. Your engagement and attentiveness added energy to the room and affirmed the importance of platforms like this for meaningful national dialogue. To our generous sponsors, the Caribbean Digital Transformation Project, Republic Bank, and St. Lucia Linens, we extend our sincere gratitude. Your support not only made this debate possible, but also demonstrates your strong commitment to the work of the NCPC and to fostering informed public discourse. We also thank our media partners, particularly the National Television Network, NTN, for broadcasting today's proceedings and helping amplify our message to a wider audience. Finally, we express our appreciation to the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College for consistently providing a platform for students to question, challenge, and grow. Sir Arthur Lewis believed deeply in the power of economic thought and public dialogue to shape societies. Today, we honored that legacy. As we bring today's event to a close, let us remember, whether we choose to strengthen ties with dominant global powers or pursue greater regional autonomy, what matters most is that we remain informed, engaged, and united in our commitment to the sustainable development of St. Lucia. Thank you once again, and do enjoy the rest of your day.